Hello, everyone. This is Cheyenne with Dragonfly Discussions. Welcome to my podcast. It is the 4th of November. We're almost at the end of the year, and I'm going to read the captions that I put in the chat just to start our session, like I do always, and then I'll get started in reading. So, welcome to my podcast, Dragonfly Discussions. You are welcome to enter your name and location you are from. I am thrilled you are listening, and I hope you enjoy this session together. Also, please, I have a safe space reminder. Please use your own safe space parameters amongst the chapters I read, which may arouse emotions or memories of your own. You are welcome to excuse yourself or stay. And I had to use that rule last time because I was very emotional when I was talking about my best friend Jennifer that passed away due to her boyfriend at the time, pushing her down some stairs. So I just want to actually, on that note, I want to share a picture of Jennifer. This is Jennifer Miyoko Harada. She was born September 28th, 1977, and she died October 9th, 2001. So 2001 was a really hard year for me. 9/11 had happened, my drug addiction, accidents, and I lost Jen. So this is what she looked like. I teared up last time, and I had to step aside, which that's okay. And I appreciate you understanding because we are human and we feel, and it's good to feel. So here we are. Okay. So thank you. So last time I went through a lot of things that happened to me. I started heroin. My jewelry was stolen. I had a car crash where my head was split open all the way to the brain. And then I lost my best friend, Jennifer. So now I'm arrested. I'm living on the streets. I'm just a mess. I am in a complete mess in my addiction. So here we are, page 107, subchapter The Monster in Me. And you'll understand what I mean by that. So by the end of October 2002, I decided to convince my parents that it was a good idea for me to see Debbie again. And again, if you've been following or not, Debbie is my birth mother, whom I don't call as mom. I use her first name, Debbie. She was never a mom to me. She was never a good person in my life. She was always a drug addict, alcoholic. She wished I was never born. She hated me and was jealous of me from day one. So I don't understand it. All I did was be born. But you'd have to read my book to understand her psychology. Her psychology is something to understand as well. Doesn't excuse it, but it helps understand. So I decided it was a good idea to see Debbie, my birth mother, who was living in Sacramento at the time. I'm living in Fresno, and that's where I'm from. So here I go. Debbie had been out of prison. My birth mom, she was in and out of jail, in and out of prison all my life. Debbie had been out of prison for some time by then and living in Sacramento, California. I hadn't talked to her much, but my grandmother in Exeter always kept me informed of her latest whereabouts and mental state. I knew that if I were allowed to visit Debbie, I could get high. She had moved on to using crack and giving up heroin. My parents were very nervous. So here I am off to go see my birth mom because all I care about is my drugs and getting high. And I figure the perfect person that I could go to is go to my birth mom, who, sure, she'll definitely welcome a buddy to use drugs with. And yeah. So when I arrived, so I went to Sacramento. When I arrived, she was waiting for me at the train station, skinny figure, disheveled hair, unkempt, dirty, and high to the sky. She would always smash her face and lips against my face, almost forcing a hug, squeezing me ever so tightly, which I couldn't stand. I couldn't stand. So that's why I'm like hesitant. Like, do you want a hug? Because I'm a hugger and I like to hug, but I can feel that some people don't want that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But she would not have that sense, and she would squeeze you and kiss you, and her nasty lipstick and her beer tasting breath and ugh. All right. I never enjoyed it. So when I arrived and saw her run towards me with her arms wide open, I swallowed and accepted the decision I had made. We got to her place, which was a room at a rundown hotel that had been turned into something like an apartment, with rooms to rent at cheap rates. Inside, there was a bed to the left. Yeah, the bed was to the left and the couch was to the right. The bathroom was to the left in the back. There wasn't a kitchen or a closet. There was barely any furniture to sit on. The carpet was stained and very dirty. I immediately looked past it all and asked Debbie for drugs. But all she had was crack. Because she was a crackhead by then. She had given up heroin and she moved on to crack. And I wasn't into crack. I tried crack and saw how people became lunatics from that drug. It just didn't provide the rush like heroin and cocaine did. So yeah, it didn't give me what I wanted. Debbie and I then went looking for my kind of drugs, meaning heroin and cocaine. Going through all the bad parts of Sacramento. Holy cow, was that sketchy. Oh my gosh, she took me down like by the river where the homeless people are. Like, she took me down these crazy neighborhoods. We walked for blocks, like endlessly, going nowhere. Uh, oh my God. We met a person who led us to another person who then led us to another person. We spent all day and night practically looking for the drugs I used, only for me to settle for the crack in the end, which made Debbie very excited. We purchased a large amount of crack, enough for her and me. I had to melt it down and turn it back into cocaine so that I could at least shoot it. I began the process. All the while, Debbie was smoking crack on her bed. That continued for some time with the both of us getting high, but I wasn't much of a crack user. It didn't really get me high, and the breakdown process wasn't working as I wanted it to. So in order to turn crack into cocaine, you have to like have baking soda, you have to have lemon, like, and then you're hoping that you turn it into cocaine and then you shoot it into your veins. Yeah, it's not the best. Like, you don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. So that continued. Let's see. So I wasn't getting high, but Debbie was getting high. And crack literally makes people crazy. Debbie's behavior began to change from the amount of crack in her system. And she began to argue with me, saying horrible things to me about my looks and the perfect life I had. I tried to stop her from saying such things to me until I began to yell at her in return. So she's starting to like pick a fight with me and put me down and say, oh, I've lived such this perfect rich life with my dad, and my dad's given me this perfect life, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from. I've had a good life, but still you have shown me the bad side of life. So like, I don't understand. But she was always so jealous of me, so jealous of me. So we began to start to argue. We were both yelling loudly in each other's faces until she spoke the most unbelievable and hurtful words right to my face. I wish you were never born. And walked into the tiny bedroom. She said that to me, my own birth mother. I stood there in complete shock over what I had just heard. Soon, the deepest and strongest rage came over me. I said, "What did you just say to me? You wish I was never born?" As I walked in the bathroom to face her, she looked at me and said, "Yeah, so?" She was always disrespectful. In that instant, I wrapped my hands around her neck and began to squeeze her. I could see her eyes almost bulging out and threw her against the wall violently. I was pissed. I was so pissed. I was ready. I I I was ready to kill her. She fell and curled up in a ball in the corner, beginning to cry. I was about to lunge at her again, with my hands strangled, uh, outstretched to strangle her, when she yelled, "No, please don't." She's all cowered in the corner, with her hands protecting herself from me. That woke me up of my rage-induced haze, and all I saw was my birth mother crying, looking very scared and pitiful. So, like, I had like this epiphany, right? Like, this huge anger just was boiling up, and I swear I could have totally killed her, totally strangled her. But something came over me and just like whoosh, and and I snapped out of it, and I was like, "Oh my God. Oh my God." Like, it scared the hell out of me. I was like, "What is going on?" I stopped and looked down at my hands, beginning to back away from Debbie slowly. So I'm looking at my hands and I'm looking at her scared, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here because she's going to drive me to kill her." My sanity came back to me, and I began to feel frightened at what I had just almost done. I had almost killed Debbie in a fit of rage. I immediately packed up my bag and took off into the night, on foot, to find a phone or someone to help me make a phone call to my father. And back then, they still had pay phones. They were becoming more scarce, but they did have pay phones still. So I just was trying to find some kind of help to make some kind of communication with him to come get me or help me. I cried on the phone with my father, telling him how sorry I was and scared. I begged him to get me home. He bought me a train ticket back home for the next day and saved me from Debbie again. Page 109, subchapter The Road to Recovery. When I got off the train in Fresno, my father picked me up and immediately took me to another inpatient drug program. It was quite popular, and I knew that was the deal. When I got off the train, I knew my dad was like, "You're not coming back to anything. You're going into a program. Like, this has got to stop." So it was quite popular. My father found it, thinking it might finally help me. That moment, I entered into a 90-day inpatient program at CAP, and it's known for it. The CAP stands for Comprehensive Alcohol Program. It's out on Whitesbridge, I believe. I started with detox first, during which I went through withdrawals from the drugs I was on. So there's like one side where you detox first for as long as not as long as you need, but I mean, you're given a good amount of time to withdrawal, and then you go on the other side of the fence, and that's the longer term where you need to finish, and you're expected to follow all that and finish, which it was a great program. That went on until I was ready to enter the other part of the program, phase 2, which was on the opposite side of their enclosed fence, like I was saying. For almost 2 weeks of detox, my body would shake violently all day and night as the drugs left my system. I was given nothing but Benadryl and orange juice to help me with the horrible tremors and sweats that were taking over my body. You do not want to go through heroin withdrawal. I don't know what is worse, but heroin withdrawal is not fun. It is no joke. You think you are going to die. Methadone, I have heard, is worse than heroin, but your meth, your crank, your cocaine, nothing. But your Vicodins, your pills, that has a serious withdrawal as well. So you can have methadone withdrawals, like I said, but pills are also really, really bad to go through withdrawals. Eventually, I got through it and started feeling well enough to shower and eat. I began eating regular foods again, building up strength to go outside. I was so weak. Like, you are so weak. You have no strength in your body. For all you can do is just lay around for days. It's so horrible. I didn't think I will ever forget the feeling of the wind in my hair and against my skin the day I went outside for the first time after so long. I remember that day. And that's probably why I love the outdoors and the fresh air, because it's so invigorating. I felt fresh, awake, and alive again. The counselors noticed my improvement and thought that I was ready to move on to phase two, which phase two is the longer part of the program, on the other side of the fence. I was taken over to the other side of the fence, the same fence that I had stared at for 2 weeks straight while I went through my detox. Phase two involved classes, tasks, and expectations to adhere to so we could graduate successfully. CAP was an old hotel that had been converted into a rehabilitation center for alcoholics and addicts. So, like I said, it's over on Whitesbridge. So we're over now in the west side of town. It's kind of interesting because the west side of town was where I scored all my drugs. That's where my addiction was surrounded in, was the west side of Fresno. And the west side of Fresno is predominantly Black. It was really a nice neighborhood back in when it first started and Fresno first started. There are still beautiful homes down there. There's Chandler, Chandler Airport, and there's a restaurant out there. There's just beautiful trees. There's Kearney Mansion, Kearney Boulevard. There's so much over there. So this was down in that area. CAP was located down in that area. So it's kind of near the 99, which that's a major highway coming through Fresno. So this building you took, oh gosh, what is it? Fresno Street, and you go right, and then you take Kearney Boulevard, or you take Whitesbridge. I think it turns into Whitesbridge. Anyways, you just keep going, and there's a hotel. So it was a hotel at one point. So somehow down the road of history, they turned it into this rehab. And there's like a front office, and then like you see, it's kind of like a U shape, and there's all these rooms and doors. They're very simple rooms, but and then there's a big, huge courtyard of trees and benches and tables. So CAP was a really cool program. I really liked CAP. Okay, so where were we? So CAP was an old hotel that was converted into a rehabilitation center for alcoholics and addicts. It was known for being old and having a good reputation, co-ed, so there was men and women, and spiritual based. It was kind of a Christian base. It wasn't Catholic or anything like that. It was more Christian. When I entered my room, I saw that there were two bunk beds meant to house 4 girls in one room. We all shared one bathroom as well. On one side of phase 2 were women, while the other side was for men. So they like cut it in half, and like half of the rooms out, and like literally they were like hotel rooms. Like it was a room. You would think it would be a bed and a dresser and a TV, right? And a chair and a little table. But no, they converted it into bunk beds on both sides of the wall. There was some dresser space and space for us. Then there was a common bathroom because, every hotel has a bathroom. So there was a bathroom with a shower, bathtub shower. And that's what they used for the rehab. So there was half of that hotel was for men, and they housed also 4 guy rooms, 2 whatever. And then there was our side, the females. And then we had a common like coffee room. So they had a coffee room on their side. We had a coffee room on our side. Then there were rooms for classes. Then there was another room for chapel. And then there was an outside like ballpark with a like seating for like short little bleacher sitting. And then there was a ping pong table. I think we had volleyball. It was cool. It was really fun. And then there was all these other little tables. There was a little pond also. It was nice. Okay, so where am I? Sorry, I get lost here. We all share, okay, on one side, the women, men on the other. One of the absolute rules that we could never break: do not fraternize on any level, heterosexual or homosexual. So you couldn't fraternize with girls, boys, girls, boys, girls, boys, all that. You could not fraternize. You were going to get kicked out if you did. I settled in soon and began my stay in the program. I was not going to leave this time. So this time I was very determined. I was pretty much done. I was ready. And I really did not want to use. So I really wanted to succeed in this program. I really did. So let's see. I was not to leave this time and knew I could hold out for 90 days. So it was a short term. It wasn't a long term, like 6 months or a year. It was 90 days, 3 months, because that's 3 months is a good amount of time to be away from drugs. It sometimes isn't enough. I finally felt good again. I never wanted to go through the detox hell ever again. I began to adapt to the rules. There was a strict schedule of chores every day before sunrise, with classes during the day and then back to more chores at night before dinner. All the men and women would sit together in the chapel and engage in dinner only. So that was the only time that us men and women had common area. We were completely not supposed to be around each other at all. So they allowed chow time at chapel. Chow time and chapel was the only time that we co-ed mingled. Let's see, where was I? Okay. So sit together in chapel and engage in dinner only. So chow time and chapel. It was in those times that Mark and I noticed each other from across the room. He noticed me first and would sing Elvis Costello's "Watching the Detectives" to me, as he could walk around freely around the facility. So I don't know if any of you are Elvis Costello fans, but "Watching the Detectives" is a really cool song, and it talks about a story and a girl, and the cops are coming, and she's running, and love is in there. It's just a fun song. As we could walk around freely around the facility. So what I mean by that is, like, on the men's side, they could walk around their territory outside, smoke cigarettes, sit on the tables, and so could we. We could sit outside in our chairs, smoke our cigarettes, have our coffee, water, whatever we wanted, right? Sit outside. But the girls were noticing the boys, and the boys were noticing the girls, right? So I knew, so he would walk around and sing. So Mark was a really good singer, and his voice was very, very beautiful. So he would sing this song, and I knew he was singing it to me. So I knew he was singing it to me, and that his songs were like a code language for us to talk privately. It was pretty obvious that him and I had caught each other's eye, and we tried to keep it down low because you could get kicked out. But he had this way of singing and this song to connect with me, and I thought it was so charming. He charmed me from the other side of the room with his strong stature, beautiful blue eyes, and amazing voice that captivated me, making every day a blessing to wake up to. However, we had to be careful because the other girls started to notice our interactions and even tried to sabotage me once. So we were sneaking notes. We were passing notes around people, and there's snitches, of course. And then there's people who want to see you not make it in the program because they're jealous. And I always, every rehab, everywhere I've been, I've always had to face adversity, the hatred, the jealousy, the pity stuff that women will do to each other. So I was often sabotaged. I was often set up, and I had to defend my truth. Like, I'm innocent. Like, and it was sometimes really scary. I couldn't believe it. Just it was baffling that these women would do this to me, and I had done nothing to them other than just be who I am. Anyways, trying to just get through this sobriety, trying to get my life back together. Like, shit. Like, I'm not in here to play games. Like, this is, it was so weird. It was awful. It was actually awful. So one night they tried this hard to sabotage me. They placed one shoe in the bathtub, left the bathroom window open with the screen broken, telling on me to the counselors. They said that I was sneaking out at night. I fought all the lies fiercely and was able to graduate finally. Yeah, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. I was like, why would I have dropped a shoe and then busted out that way? Like, it didn't make sense. Like, they were stupid in how smart I am. So I won. And I'm not sure if they got kicked out. I don't know. They might have gotten kicked out. I'm not sure. I can't remember because I remember feeling really good about myself and defending myself, and being believed and being able to stay. I did not want to get kicked out. I didn't have anywhere to go. Like, I needed to stay. So anyways, thank God they believed me and I was able to stay. Goodness, let's see. Okay, it was not entirely easy with those girls and the distractions of men on the other side, but I managed to complete my first 90-day inpatient program. My family was learning to believe that I may just make it this time. So I really tried to avoid the guy that was flirting with me, Mark. I was really trying to just really get myself back on track. And so I had finally finished 90 days. That was the first time I'd ever really had that long time of sobriety. 3 months. 3 months in like years. So my family was learning to believe in me again. So page 111, love is hope. Excuse me. So love is hope. After graduating CAP in March of 2003, I finally gained my first bout of sobriety, like I was saying. I had 5 months of sobriety under my belt, and it was the longest I had been sober in years. So I guess, considering the whole time I was in there, maybe I was in there longer than 3 months. Probably so, because I was probably punished or something. I don't know. It always took me longer, which was fine. So 5 months, I felt amazing, absolutely free and confident. Then I was taken to the Transitional Living Center called TLC, which TLC still operates here in Fresno because I've driven by it a few times and it still is there. Downtown. Can't remember what street it is. Which I agreed to go upon graduating. So CAP had connections with TLC that the graduates, male or female, had like a bed waiting for them at this beautiful Victorian mansion. And it's a mansion that's converted. The bottom has like their living room, dining room, and then the kitchen, and all the cabinets are separated individually by your space. So you have like a little shelf space and a little refrigerator space. And then upstairs, up the stairwell, was, I think it was 3 stories, and like part of the second floor was women, and then I think the third floor was men. And there, again, you had to share rooms. So there was like a 2 girl, 3 girl, 4 girl, whatever, how big this house was, I can't remember. And then next door to that house was Turning Point. So it used to be Turning Point, and I don't know if Turning Point still exists over there again, because this was 2003. But then you were instructed, if you had to be sober, you had to check in and check out. If you left the house, you had to sign in, sign out. You had to tell them where you were going. Um, you had to go to the classes next door to that house, which was Turning Point. You had to go to day classes. You had to test. You had to be sober. All of this stuff, right? Because it was a sober living house. It was my very first sober living house, co-ed, with men and women, and you're sharing space, and it's really dynamically set to really teach you how to get back out there, if you do it right. I mean, there's people who do abuse it, and I did abuse it, but it really is a great option. It's a really great option if you work it the right way. Um, so let's see. So I had agreed to go there after graduating, right? Because that's what you do after graduating CAP. You want to continue on to another successful step, which then leads you to being more successful in society. Um, so, with the help of CAP, the center moved me into a house where other sober men and women lived under strict rules and court orders. It was a massive mansion filled with large rooms downstairs, a large kitchen, and more bedrooms upstairs. There were people living with each other, cohabitating peacefully. I had never seen or experienced anything like it before, but strangely enough, it felt like home. Soon I learned all the rules about how many cabinets and refrigerator space I had in the kitchen, the bathroom schedules, and curfews. Yes, I had a curfew to adhere to. I also had to attend mandated classes during the day and help with chores around the house. I had to sign in and out every time I left the house and explain where I was going. I also had to follow the court appointed dates of seeing the judge and convincing them I was changing. So I have all these court appointed meetings, right, with the judge, because I'm in some serious trouble. I'm I've racked up, you know, some charges, and now I'm in the court system. Um, in a twist of fate, Mark was also transitioned into the same house as me, and one day we noticed each other across the dining room table. So I had left Cap before he did. And yes, we had flirted and everything, but I really tried to just focus on succeeding the program and getting on to the next step. And then it just so happened that here he is in the same house. And I'm like, okay. um, we noticed each other across the dining room table, only this time we had the freedom to talk to each other. So you could talk to the guys, you could laugh, you could giddy up, you could be friendly. It wasn't like you were going to get in trouble. I mean, fraternizing still wasn't kosher, but it wasn't like you were going to get kicked out. Um, so Mark and I fell for each other pretty soon after that. We couldn't wait to sneak out of the house to finally have our first kiss. We had to be clever, though, because fraternizing was against the rules. Well, yeah, I guess I take that back. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They weren't that. I mean, it was against the rules, but they really were pretty lenient. I mean, there was other people doing it too. Uh, So we had to be clever. We just, whatever, we'll be clever. Um, Again, people seem to always come against me every time I tried to do something for myself. um, so we would leave at different times. So I would leave at like 9 a.m. and he would leave at like 10, you know. Um, and we would meet somewhere around the corner outside. So we would find a spot to meet just in walking distance, and then we would go off and do our thing. As soon as we would meet, we would immediately hug, hold, and kiss each other like two teenagers again. It was as if we couldn't get enough of each other. And this man, Mark, you're going to hear more about him, but I swear he's one of the loves of my life. One of the probably the only real love. He was so handsome, so fun. He was 13 years older than me, but he was so young and oh my gosh. Anyways, so that's why I smile with so much enjoyment talking about him because he was a really, really good man. One of the few good men in my life. I think it's my dad, Mark, Evan, my very first boyfriend. I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Still. Well, I mean, John and Mark, and all the other men at UU Church, but um, those were my staple men. Okay. I have a lot of good men now. Um, okay, where am I? Okay, so we couldn't get enough each other. Mark made me feel so alive and together. We had a romance going on secretly. We continued to attend classes and obey all the house rules while planning the day we would move out together. We both had gone back to school and gained financial aid, which provided us with a little bit of money so we could move in together. Financial aid is really, really nice. Well, it was. I don't know what it is now, but all you had to do part-time, full-time, and you got like thousands of dollars. And, it was to go towards your classes, your books, your living expenses, all that. Um, so we found a cute studio apartment in the Tower District of Fresno. It's a district still is, for its history, fun music, restaurants, shops, and parades. Tower District here in Fresno is the coolest place. It's nostalgic, LGBTQ plus. We have our Pride Parade. We've got the oldest theater there, Tower Theater. We've got restaurants, bars, coffee shops, restaurants, sandwich shops, cafes, bookshops, jewelry shops, clothes, um, really cool things down in Tower. We secretly made all the arrangements to move out. In June, the day finally came when I moved in with a man for the first time in my life. So this was the first time I'd ever lived with a man. I had finally found someone who loved me and wanted forever with me. Mark and I continued to attend school and live our lives together, free from all the rules and discipline. We continued to stay sober, obey our probation and parole obligations until one fateful day I decided to listen to the whispers of the sleeping demon and invited heroin into our home. So I was on probation, he was on parole. So he had already been to prison. When you go to prison, you no longer are on probation. You're now on parole. And he was on parole, so that meant if he messed up, he was going back to prison. I was on probation, meaning I'd never been to prison. I'd been in jail. So if I messed up, I was going back to jail with the possibility of going to prison if the crime was deep enough, serious enough. So it was pretty serious. But I ended up relapsing. And I knew the risk because him and I were both heroin addicts. Mark was a heroin addict, recovering heroin addict. He had the same amount of time that I had, pretty much. But he had a whole lot more history with heroin and crack and all these drugs. I was just maybe 5-6 years into heroin. I knew the risks because Mark was also a heroin addict. I knew that if I brought heroin into our lives, it meant risking his relapse too. I struggled for days until I gave in and bought heroin. I used it in the bathroom, but Mark caught me. He didn't kick me out because he loved me. He just told me that it couldn't continue. We eventually lost our apartment and had to move into Mark's aunt's house. Yep, because I didn't stop. It was my fault. And Mark ended up relapsing. And we ended up pretty quickly going downhill. So we still had to attend school and live off financial aid. So we're now living in the bedroom of his aunt's house, the both of us in his aunt's house, and it's crowded and we had to obey all these rules. It was very uncomfortable. So Mark and I were also introduced to a church where his aunt went. It was important to her that if we were to live in her home, we had to stay sober, go to school, gain employment, and attend church. And so Mark and I began to rebuild our lives together. We saved money, went to school, and focused on moving out one day. Okay. Page 114, crashing down. Clovis, California is a cleaner part of town just on the outskirts of Fresno. And I'm actually living on the outskirts of Clovis. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting being back here in town and living near so many memories. Mark and I had saved enough money to move into a beautiful loft-style apartment in Clovis. It had a bedroom and a bathroom and a closet upstairs with a thick wooden fence-like banister railing overlooking the living room below. So there was the loft. So there were stairs going up and there was a loft. And it had this railing, and so you put the bed there and you could overlook down below, and then there was a tiny bathroom and a kind of like a walk-in closet. And then down underneath was your living room. There was like a little space underneath the staircase, and then your kitchen. It was really cute. They're so cute. The chalets, they're so cute. Downstairs was the living room, kitchen, and hidden nook under the staircase. In September, Mark and I were very excited to move in, and it didn't take long to feel like we were home. We even adopted a solid black kitty named him Mojo, after Jim Morrison's song, Mr. Mojo Rising. Mr. Mojo Rising. Mr. Mojo Rising. It gets harder, but play the song, Jim Morrison. I got him on my wall. Mark was full of life and laughter and so very loving to me. He was so amazing. He had amazing skills in music, yard work, cooking, etc. He was everything I ever wanted in a man or possibly husband. We gained cash jobs from random people, through which I learned how to lay concrete. So Mark was very skilled. I laid concrete. I learned how to build roofs. I learned how to dig trenches for sprinkler systems and create beautiful gardens and level ground and everything. He taught me all of that. We continued to attend church too, just down the street from our apartment, with Mark's Aunt Gloria. Mark and I had also met a couple, Dee Dee and Chris. We bonded with them and they took us under their wing, guiding us much like parents. In December of 2003, I decided to talk to the doctors about my hepatitis C and seek treatment. So, like I said, I pretty much knew I had contracted hepatitis C in that alley that day, and I never forgot about it. And I knew that I needed to get it looked at, and I needed to get tested to see if I really did have it. And I needed to face it if I did have it, because you have to catch it early. You just have to catch it early. So I remember that moment in the alley when I had contracted it. and I knew I needed to treat it quickly or death was in my near future. I was fortunate that I had been going to doctors from my medical coverage at the time. So, due to my job history and all this stuff, I had some medical coverage I was able to still have. At the time, it is so different now. It was so different then. It was so much easier then. Oh my God. They were willing to help me fight it. It was going to be a year-long process like a cancer chemotherapy treatment that involved needles and lots of pills. It was so fighting hepatitis C required a lot of injections and a lot of pills. That was very hard on your body. It was literally like chemo. You'll hear what I went through. However, I knew that I couldn't have any kind of needles around me. Mark and I were trying to stay sober, and needles were a huge trigger for us that could cause us to relapse. Yeah, we did not want to have needles in the house. The doctor sent me home with a bag full of needles in a box and another bag full of pills with directions to follow for the following year. I was in contact with only my father by then. All other family members and friends were estranged. I called my father, told him that I had a serious disease, and asked him if he would help me through the process. As always, my father agreed. He came over and I showed him what the process entailed. I had to take 3 pills in the morning, 3 pills in the PM, 1 shot daily by injection of interferon into the fatty parts of my body. I asked him to take the needles with him so that I wouldn't be tempted to use them for drugs. Together, we formed a schedule of when he would stop by to give me my shot. Within 3 to 4 months, I started noticing big changes in my health. I was in the shower one day washing my hair when clumps of hair fell off. It was falling from my head. Like it was falling from my head. I was losing my hair fast and my weight along with it. My strength had completely disappeared. I turned into a skeleton. I was so weak. My hair was just gone. I was so it was so hard. Oh my God, it was so hard. I went practically bald and had sores all over my body from the shots on my thighs, butt, arms, and stomach. So I had to go around to multiple spots of my body because they got sore. So I needed to let one spot heal, go to the other side, go to this arm, go to this arm, go to my butt cheek, go to my other butt cheek, go to my thigh, go to this thigh, back thigh, front thigh, to let all the body parts heal. I had to use multiple parts of my body to get my shots because I didn't have much fat on my body. I was so thin. I didn't have any fat. It was just skin and bones. And the shots had to be in fatty areas. Yeah, you had to get it into a fatty area, which was so hard. Rashes would break out in every part afterwards, and for days I would lay in bed down by weakness. So immediately when you shot that stuff in you, you would rash, just this horrible rash. I was fighting hepatitis C. All the while behind the shadows, Mark was struggling with his own addiction now, and I hadn't realized it until it was too late. He admitted to me that he was using drugs again. He would leave for hours to do things for money to get drugs while I would lie in bed alone with Mojo, my kitty, smoking what little marijuana and cigarettes I had left, waiting for Mark to come home. Eventually, he would come home with gifts and full of excitement to share how his day went. I loved it when he came home because he made me feel safe and so happy. Throughout the year 2004, Mark and I, why did I say Mike? Mark and I continued to attend church while I continued to receive my interferon treatments. Mark tried to find work since going to school was history now. We were living off a lie of financial aid. So we had basically stopped going to school. We were still pretending like we were. because you could kind of fake it back then with financial aid. They didn't really check. So we continued on, and they granted us another lump sum of payment. So we got our first lump sum and another lump sum, and I think we got another lump sum, which was a lot of money. It was like $3,000. It was a lot of money. Mark was still on parole and I was still on probation. We knew our situation was difficult, and so we tried to remain sober. Mark and I attended church one day when a group of girls came in and shared their stories. They talked about their drug addiction, life struggles, and how God helped them, ultimately setting them free from their demons forever. They were from a drug program of sorts called New Life for Girls. I pretended that it impacted me, but it really hadn't, because I was struggling so much with the hepatitis C interferon treatment and worrying over Mark, who I knew was using again. So I had a lot on my mind, right? How could I listen to their testimonies? Our only friends, Dee Dee and Chris, continued to counsel us, leading us in the right direction. But we were just appeasing everyone. We were just faking it. Like, we really put on a good show. We made it so that we looked good. We were the perfect couple. We dressed nice. We held it together. And behind the scenes, we covered our tracks and we would use. Eventually, I fell back into heroin. So I again relapsed. So now I am fighting hepatitis C. I'm about to finish my program, going through that whole crap. And now I began to use heroin, which was even worse to do to my body at the time. It's worse to do anyways, but it was really bad to relapse. So eventually I fell into heroin along with Mark. The short months at the end of 2004 were like a lightning bolt to my life. Page 117, rock bottom. We're going to go past, well, we might end right around 8-ish. So hang in there. We're almost done with chapter 3. Okay, so here we are, page 117, rock bottom. My father continued to give me injections while I hid the awful truth from him. I completed the hepatitis C interferon treatment successfully, but then Mark and I started stealing wooden pallets to sell them for drugs. So I finished the interferon treatment. The doctors are proud of me. They're seeing positive signs of my body getting back to normal. My liver is showing good positive test results. The hepatitis C seems to be undetectable. So things are starting to get better. My strength is starting to come back. And I decide to take advantage of that opportunity to live. I've been given an opportunity to live. And I relapse. And I start shooting drugs again with my boyfriend. And we start selling and doing anything we can. Because I didn't realize all the stuff that he did to feed his addiction. So he was in all kinds of other stuff, like stealing pallets and stealing plants. He would steal sago palms off of people's yards. He would literally dig them up, because you could sell a sago palm for like $100 on the street. It was nuts. He would find buyers. He was such a salesman. So then Mark and I started stealing wooden pallets, and those are those wooden pallets in the back of warehouses and stores, and you could sell them on the streets for drugs. Like, a good pallet would be like $5. A bad pallet would be like $3. So 10 pallets at $5, that's $50. That's a lot of money to buy drugs. And our habit was about that. It was $100, $50. Oh, no, it was more than that a day. But that could get you half a day. $50 to $100, that could get you through half a day. And then you had to get through the rest of the day. Our addiction grew faster than I could ever imagine. We were killing each other instead of loving each other. We became each other's worst demons with an addiction that was beyond our control. At the time, Mark and I had a beautiful dove nest above the door of our apartment. So right above the door was this beautiful eave, and then there was a dove's nest. One morning, the police came to visit us, and we didn't answer the door. After what seemed like hours of hiding inside, they finally went away, but knocked down the dove's nest on their way out. Yeah, not cool. When it was clear for us to come out, we opened the door and saw that the doves were gone with their babies lying dead in our doorstep. That was the catalyst that set forward our fate from then on. Mark and I began to pack up, planning a life on the run. We decided to pack up our stuff and run, live out of our car. Here I was repeating history like my grandmother and Leroy on the run, living like Debbie as a drug addict, and forgetting everything my parents had taught me or raised me to be. How was all of this happening? So I had a grandfather who was a convicted felon who escaped from prison and ran on the run. And here I am repeating that kind of history. My birth mother, Debbie, was a drug addict all my life. Here I am turning into a drug addict, leaving my family, doing the worst of the worst, running from the law, and then forgetting everything that my dad taught me to be, forgetting all the good upbringing that he taught me to be, just throwing it all away for drugs. How was all this happening, right? Mark had left one day to get money for drugs. So I went out to tend to the garden when I fell to my knees in the deepest agony I had ever felt in my life and cried out to God to help me. I remember that desperation. I just wanted it to end. I just wanted it to end. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go on the run. This wasn't my life. This wasn't what I was supposed to do. Wasn't what my life was supposed to be. I cried and wept from the depths of my soul like I had never had before. I didn't want what was happening to be happening. I didn't want to run from the law and face prison. I didn't want to live out of a car. I didn't want to leave my family. I was so scared, addicted, and broken that for the first time in my life, I really wanted to die. I sat there on the steps for hours as I looked into the sky and talked to God about the decisions I was about to make regarding my future. Mark had a truck, so he purchased a camper shell. So he purchased a camper shell to kind of put a covering over the back, right? So that we could live in it. In the night, we packed up the truck with all of our most precious valuables, along with our cat Mojo, and left everything else behind. It's amazing that some of the stuff I have in my apartment that I have, because it's from some of the stuff was in that truck 20 years ago. And I'm really grateful that I have a picture of my kitty cats, Chester and Smiles, and Mojo. And here's Mojo. So here's me. That was me all messed up right there, fighting hepatitis C. And that's my kitty Mojo. And that's our little apartment. And that's me sitting in the living room. Yeah. Okay. What was I? So in the night, we packed up the truck with all of our most precious valuables, along with our cat Mojo, and left everything else behind. We had bought enough drugs with our financial aid money to last us enough so we could get to New York, where the China white heroin was. That was our ultimate goal, to get to the East Coast, where the China white is, and say goodbye to the black tar heroin that was on the West Coast. Because that's all that's over here is the black tar heroin, which is a lesser potency. And over on the East Coast, it's China white, and just a little dab gets you high. But you can also overdose and die just like that. So let's see. Okay. Our habit had become so huge that we decided to leave town and start our journey. We spent 2 days and 2 nights in a truck, washing at truck stops and letting Mojo out of the truck on a leash. So there was Klein's truck stop back in the day. It just recently, in the past 5, 6 years or so, got torn down. Maybe longer. I don't know. Maybe 10 years. But Klein's truck stop was off of Highway 99 and Herndon exit. And there was a gas station, and then there was Klein's truck stop where all the truck drivers were able to go. They could fuel up, they could rest. And there was a restaurant in there. There was these really cool showers and bathrooms, like timed showers, where it was a big old room and a shower. And it was timed. You could stay in there for like 30 minutes and you could shower, you could get freshened up, because truckers are on the road for days, right? And so it would allow them to shower up and get all their refreshed, and even there was a laundry facility too to wash your clothes. It was a really cool spot for truckers. And I'm shocked that they took Klein's truck stop down. It was really sad. So we would go there. That's where we went, because people, with campers, traveling people would stay at truck stops because they knew it was a safe space somewhat. And that there was food, there was showers, there were restrooms. And the cops kind of left you alone. It was lit a little bit and you felt a little bit secure in ways. So let's see, where are we? Okay. It was important to me to make a final call to my parents to tell them what I was about to do and that they might never see or talk to me again. On December 9th, 2004, with the wind blowing and the cold settling in, I found a payphone. I stood there and dialed my parents' phone number for what might have been the very last time. They answered, and I began to say goodbye as I cried in shame. I knew that I was in serious trouble. I was running from the law. It was only a matter of time before the authorities became aware and came looking for us. My parents were so confused by what I told them. I had betrayed them, lied to them, used them again, and I had ultimately turned into Debbie, my birth mom. I cried as I hung up the phone, saying goodbye to the people I loved the most. Then I jumped in the truck with Mark to go find a safe spot to park and sleep for the night. However, around 2 a.m., Mark and I were woken up harshly by flashlights streaming through all of our windows of our truck and directly into our faces. Blinded and confused, we woke up in a panic, grabbing for each other and our clothes. It was the police, many of them surrounding our truck. Their guns were pointed at the windows and into our faces while they yelled at us to get out. It was so freaking scary. Oh my God. We were both pulled from the truck and separated. I immediately called out for Mojo. I told them that I had a cat in the truck whom I cared about very much and requested them not to let him run away. A cop allowed me to help get Mojo and helped put him in the squad car with me. That was actually the most precious part about it all. The cops were so sincere and nice, and they let me grab my cat. They put me in the back of the cop car. They didn't even handcuff me. They let me hold my cat, and they put me and my cat in the back of the cop car. The cop allowed me to help get Mojo and helped put him in the squad car with me. I waited in the cop car with Mojo while Mark was placed in another squad car as the officers began to search our vehicle. We had all our belongings in that truck, but there was also a lot of heroin, cocaine, and drug paraphernalia to put us away forever. We were already under strict probation and parole stipulations with the possibility of facing some serious time in prison. As I sat there in the back of the police car, a huge relief overcame me because I didn't truly want that life. I realized that I had reached my true rock bottom. Living in that truck, surrounded by all my belongings and our drugs, was my rock bottom. Although what was happening was certainly tough, I was somehow at peace. And that is no joke. I remember it was scary and it was frightening, but I knew that I was going to be okay. I knew that I was on my way to something better, that my life was going to change, that finally this was my ticket out. And I can't explain it, but I'm going to show you some pictures that are in my book because my mugshot is quite unlike any mugshots. I'm smiling. And that's because I was really, truly happy. It was like that prayer on that doorstep when I was outside my apartment after the doves had fell and were knocked down. And I was talking to God and I was like, please get me out of here. Please get me out of here. And he did. And it was like I was realizing, God, you just finally put your hand down in my life and pulled me out for the final last time of my hell. And this is your ticket out. And so I was smiling. So we are done finally with chapter 3. That was a very hard time in my life. Very, very, very hard time in my life. And I'm glad you were with me and I made it through. But I'm going to show you some pictures to take you all the way up to where we're at. And then I'm going to stop because the rest of the pictures are later on in the book. So this is me and my dad in 1977. So that's me and my dad. My dad adored me. Look at those chops. What are those handlebar type sideburns? I don't even know. But he loved me. My dad adored me. That's 1977. Then this next page is the apartment. This is the apartment that me and my dad had from 1981 to 1983, from when my birth mother left me in the apartment, abandoned me in an apartment in Lindsay. My dad rescued me, got full custody of me. We danced in this apartment. It is still up, and I live right around the corner from this apartment. That tree is still thriving. It is now, what, almost 50 years old, more than, because I'm going to be 49. So this apartment is really special. And every time I drive by it on Gettysburg, I always remember me and my dad. This is the Harrison house. If you read my book, my dad married a stepmom, my stepmom, Linda. And this is the Terrace house. I'm sorry, did I say Harrison? This is the Terrace house. This is the Terrace house where my dad, she had this house first with her 2 children. And then we moved in, me and my dad moved in. So that's the Terrace house in Fresno. Beautiful, awesome house. Have lots of really great memories at that house. Lots of Christmases, playing in the backyard in the tree, walking along this brick wall here. Lots of good memories in this house. And then this is the Harrison house. This is the Harrison house, the big old mansion that I talk about in chapter 2. This is the big white house that actually I picked on a bike ride when we were young. We were dreaming about our houses if we were rich, and I picked this house, so this became my house. So this was 1988 to 2009. My father passed away in this house, which I'll talk about later, but this house has a lot of memories, lots of parties and Thanksgivings and Christmases, and just so much. And I drive by this house often just to be in the presence of what my life was many years ago. And then this is the final picture, which is so fun to show. This is my mugshot. This is my mugshot in 2005, but the date is wrong. Well, it could be. Yeah, it was 2005. So look how happy I am. See that smile? See how happy I am? Like, I am not like crying. I'm not like upset. I knew I was going to get help. I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. You answered a prayer. I'm going to finally get help. So now we're on to chapter 4, which chapter 4 is a really cool chapter. It's going to take us some time also to get through. But this is where I go into my final rehab and my life starts to be better. At least sober wise, recovery wise. I still have a lot of demons to overcome. Past chapter 4, the demons don't stop. That's why this book is so incredible, because all the way to the very end, I am overcoming adversity. I am fighting demons and the dragonflies and God and the universe and spirits guide me and protect me. So please pick up my book. Thank you for watching my podcast. Please subscribe. Please follow me. Please make comments on my Amazon book site there. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you watching tonight. We are 12 minutes past 8 o'clock, and I look forward to you next time. We are going to be probably spending the next 3 Tuesdays at 7 p.m. with chapter 4. And chapter 4 is Arriving with Him, page 126. So we've got November 11th, November 18th, and November 25th, right before Thanksgiving at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. So please watch, and thank you. Good night.